Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And since the events of Ultimate Invasion, I've been closely following the emergence of another world. After years of relegation to early 2000s nostalgia, Ultimate Marvel is back, and a new Ultimate Universe is manifesting before our very eyes. And after the events of Ultimate Universe number 1 and Ultimate Spider-Man number 1, I think it's safe to say that it's off to a strong start. But now, a new angle of that saga is unfolding in Ultimate Black Panther number 1. Written by Bryan with art by Stefano Casalli, this series promises to follow the direct fallout of the Maker's defeat. And having followed the news surrounding this new Ultimate Universe from the beginning, I definitely took an interest in this comic, and I'm once again here to offer my full review. But Ultimate Black Panther number 1 is billed as a different kind of story compared to Ultimate Spider-Man or even Ultimate X-Men. There's a bit more geopolitics involved here, as is often the case with Wakanda. But this conflict is different in that it builds directly on what has made this new Ultimate Universe so distinct. Now, before I go any further, please note that I will be covering some major spoilers here. So if you haven't read this issue yet, I highly recommend you check it out first. I also recommend you check out Ultimate Invasion as well, because the foundations for this issue were established in that story. Even though the Maker was defeated in that story, the power structure that he set up was not particularly eager to undo all the changes he made to this universe. That structure, which now goes by the Maker's Council, is intent on clinging to power. We saw just how far they were willing to go when they framed Tony Stark for a terrorist attack in New York City. But in Ultimate Black Panther number 1, we see they're not simply content with just holding on to their power, they want to expand it. And that immediately makes Wakanda a target, because in this universe, just like many others, Wakanda resisted being conquered, colonized, or influenced. Its people, its technology, and its warrior culture dissuaded even someone like the Maker from seeking conflict with them. But it still holds great value, as does the rest of Africa. This is where Khonshu and Ra come in. They both had major roles on the Maker's Council, and they were tasked with overseeing the whole of Africa. Now, without the Maker's influence, they seek to tighten their hold on the entire continent, and like many others before them, they have set their eyes on Wakanda. We see early in the issue just how ruthless these two are willing to be to other African communities. But we also see that Wakanda's agents are aware of this looming threat. Some are even eager to do something about it. And that helps set the tone for the kind of conflict that unfolds in Ultimate Black Panther number 1. While the rest of Africa is being overrun by Khonshu and Ra's armies, King T'Challa of Wakanda is having nightmares. He seems to know on some level that there's conflict brewing in and around his kingdom, and at some point, action must be taken. It's also here where we get some insights into Wakandan politics in this universe. Yes, it's fairly similar to what we see in both the mainline comics and the MCU, but there are some twists here. For one, T'Challa isn't ruling on his own. He does have a wife in Okoye. However, their marriage does not appear to be one born out of romance. It's more political in that it closely follows Wakandan traditions. Now, this ends up being a major theme, because while T'Challa is bound by these traditions, he also seems unsettled by them. He says outright that they must change, but changing any kingdom is not easy, even for a king, and his nightmares seem to be influencing this sentiment. That leads T'Challa to seek out guidance from his father, T'Chaka, and their interaction here is very much in keeping with that of a father and a son. But it also nicely highlights this conflict between tradition and change within Wakanda. Whereas T'Chaka seems inclined to maintain tradition, T'Challa makes his skepticism much more overt. Even when he seeks greater wisdom about his nightmares from the Temple of Vadu Khan, he continues to get more conflicting information. He's told that there are enemies within their midst. Wakanda's isolation and technology cannot keep protecting it. That only gives T'Challa more reasons to be concerned, because if the nightmares were an omen, this is a direct warning. That's eventually confirmed by a couple of scouts who witnessed Khonshu and Ra's atrocities. It's more than enough to convince Princess Shuri that they need to prepare for war. But T'Challa still opts to exercise restraint. Whether it's due to his nightmares or the advice from his father, he is not eager to just rush into a war, especially without knowing much about Khonshu and Ra's forces. Now, this is the kind of restraint you'd want from a capable king, but at the same time, so many around him disagree. The threats from his nightmares are now taking a real, tangible form, and he's expected to make the right decisions for all of Wakanda. It's another prime example of the difficulty that comes with being a king. It's a constant that T'Challa and every ruler of Wakanda faces in any Marvel universe. And this new Ultimate Universe is no different. However, This world is much more chaotic than others like it due to the Maker's manipulations. And what served T'Challa so well in the mainline comics or the MCU might not work as well in this universe. But while T'Challa continues to exercise restraint on behalf of Wakanda, someone else has already taken a more proactive approach in dealing with Khonshu and Ra. When another village is attacked by their armies, someone is there to meet them, and in this case, it's a new version of Killmonger. And I have to say, this design for Killmonger is just perfect. It's a solid blend of his classic look with the aesthetics we saw in the MCU. And the way he makes his presence felt is both brutal and effective. But he is not the only one standing against Khonshu and Ra. When another attack comes in from the air, we get our first and only glimpse of the power of Storm. Now, we already knew she was going to show up from the solicits. It was also previously announced that she and Killmonger would be romantically linked. And together, they promised to be a different kind of power couple, especially in the eyes of their enemies. And while we don't see Storm nearly enough, we get a nice glimpse of her power, as well as how it complements Killmonger's abilities. Together, they don't just save this village, they present themselves as godlike saviors. And naturally, the people respond with awe, and possibly even a hint of hope. Because thus far, nobody has been able to resist Khonshu and Ra's armies. This is the first sign of someone standing up for the whole of Africa. They are basically doing what others wanted Wakanda to do. And that creates this unique but interesting situation. Because remember, this is a Marvel universe in which there are no Avengers, no Fantastic Four, and no X-Men. The Maker already made sure that they never formed, so there are no other superhero teams coming to help these people. That leaves both a void and a vulnerability that has only grown since the Maker's defeat. Now at this point, we don't yet know where on that spectrum Killmonger and Storm will arrive. We don't even know what kind of characters they are in this new Ultimate Universe. We just know that they acted before T'Challa and the armies of Wakanda, and that is bound to leave an impression on the whole of Africa. But as it turns out, Wakanda can't stay out of the conflict for much longer, because shortly after Killmonger makes his move, Khonshu and Ra make their presence known inside the isolated kingdom. During their annual celebration of life, an agent attempts to assassinate T'Challa in front of his people. But his father, T'Chaka, does not let it happen. He manages to save his son, but at the cost of his own life. He ends up being the first casualty in a war that T'Challa was avoiding. And as he's falling, witnessing his father's death firsthand, he manifests his iconic Black Panther suit. And just like Killmonger, it's a perfect design, blending both classic aesthetics and some features unique to this new Ultimate Universe. And by donning that iconic suit, it finally becomes clear to him and to all of Wakanda. They are going to war. They're going to take the fight to Khonshu and Ra. These two aren't just threatening the kingdom, they made it personal for T'Challa. Now he can't just act as a king, he also has to act as a son who just watched his father die. It perfectly sets the stage for the kind of royal drama that makes Black Panther awesome in any universe. But in this new Ultimate Universe, I feel it works even better. T'Challa and Wakanda are in such a unique situation here, dealing with the aftermath of Ultimate Invasion and operating in a Marvel universe in which there are no superhero teams. T'Challa can't just call upon the Avengers for help, and he can't reach out to allies outside his kingdom for assistance. He and his kingdom must truly stand alone. And they have to do this after Killmonger and Storm fired the first shots. What does that mean for T'Challa? What does it mean for Wakanda, Africa, and this emerging Ultimate Universe as a whole? It's hard to say at this point, but I am definitely intrigued. Ultimate Black Panther #1 effectively gives us a kingdom that managed to isolate itself from all the upheavals caused by the Maker. But now, they can't stay isolated anymore. They must play a larger part in this emerging Marvel universe. It's complicated, it's personal, it's dramatic, and yeah, it's volatile too. These are all dynamics in which Black Panther tends to thrive most. And I cannot wait to see how it continues to evolve in this new Ultimate Universe. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, take care and stay safe.